Hello, my name is CynthiaAliceanderson, and I'm the owner and founder of the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. We are now completing 3 years of being on the air, and I wanted to personally thank you for all of your support. As a listener, as you share the podcast on your social media pages, and for your financial support. We would not be where we are today without this amazing support, which is in over 80 countries and 150,000 downloads worldwide. So I thank you, dear friend. I'm grateful we get to walk this journey together, and I cannot wait to see what we're able to do in another 3 years. Thank you again, dear friend, and blessings on the journey.
Supportek Staffing presents The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 162. Special guests Vivienne Aerts and Ted Steinebach. And now your host, Reverend Cynthiaaliceanderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia and I'm the host, and I'm here in 818 Studios with my producer.
Hello, everybody. This is Dave Croft. I am not in my studio. I'm actually on vacation. This is how much I care about you, the listeners, and our guests. And no, I'm here in North Carolina, at Oak Island, North Carolina, in our little family beach home. And it is so good to be here, but I'm not going to lie. It's really good to be on vacation.
Oh, man, Dave, glad you're having a great time. And
Yeah.
I do thank you for your dedication of being on the show today and everything.
Oh, happy to be here.
Well, we really wanted to have both of us on board and as professional as possible with our two guests today. We have Vivienne Aerts and Ted Steinebach with us today. And we can't wait for you to get to know them, a little more about their story and their spiritual journey, as well as the great, great work they're doing. But first of all, friends, we just want to welcome you to the show. And I want to personally thank you for all the wonderful support, as always. Many of you know that now this is my ministry, my podcast, my online courses, my retreats I'm doing around the country. So we just thank all of you, those of you around the world. We're in over 80 countries now, which is just hard to believe. And we just thank you for all the great support and love you're sending our way. And we're excited for you to meet our special guest today. So, Dave, we don't really have a show title. It's just with special guests.
That's right, with special guests. This is episode 162. It's hard to believe the summer is rounding the bend. We're all coming into August, and yeah, where has the time gone? Feels like just yesterday it was May.
It is so true. So Vivienne and Ted, thank you so much for being with us. So first of all, I want to ask you where you're joining us from, because I know you're not in the country right now, I don't think.
Yeah, we're supposed to be in Brooklyn, but we're currently in Leiden, which is a city half an hour south of Amsterdam in the Netherlands.
Wow, right. And are you from there?
Yeah, we're both from here. Both our parents live very, very close to Leiden. It's a cute little town. It has a lot of old houses. It was the birthplace of Rembrandt. So all these houses are just like that. And there's canals and stained glass. And, our house is from 1750. So it's old.
I should say it's like a living history. And, we are making history right now, all of us, by our actions, by our beliefs, by the things we hold dear to us. And it's so funny that we're here together because, we met through a mutual, an acquaintance of mine, somebody you know very well, Kenny Werner, who's been on the show. And as we talked, I said, I believe there's more to Vivienne than what I know. And I wanted to get to know you. I just felt really guided. And then to meet you and your husband and hear all the great work you're doing was inspiring to me. I knew it was something our listeners would want to hear about. So tell us a little bit about your big project. I mean, you're doing this, and I want you to just tell all about it because there's so many beautiful details. I don't want to miss them.
Well, yeah, it's wonderful to see you again. And right, I work with Kenny Werner, and there's a lot to say about that, but I do wear multiple hats. So I am a singer, a vocalist, and my husband works with chocolate. So then the project you're talking about is my latest one, is gonna be a new album, since everybody's waiting for the world to be a little more normal. We figured there's no gigs, there's no shows and concert. I was like, I'm gonna make a new album, and why not help people with that? So a couple of years ago, Teddy was working with this chocolate brand that's from the Netherlands. They're called Original Beans. And they make sustainable chocolate. They pay the farmers a stable price for their cacao. That's sometimes, well, in general, it's like twice as high as fair trade. And in most of the time, that's like 90% on top of the world cacao price. So they pay the farmers like really well. So the farmers can send their kids to school and they can build on their business. And then for every bar, they plant a tree. They save the rainforest. They grow these trees. The cocoa tree, one tree needs 2 shade trees. Yes. So for the chocolate brand, it doesn't make sense to plant trees. So we have been working with them for 5 years now, and we really love their way of helping the world and sell chocolate. So one of their projects is in Congo, and they have by now 1,500 women that make this chocolate on this farm, and they own the farm. They all these women have a share in the company, and then Original Beans is the main company that buys the chocolate from them. So in Congo, there's all these wars, and then these women are left alone. These husbands, they are, they disappear. So they empower these women, and I thought it was just such an amazing story that I wanted to just support. We wanted to go there, and then there at that, like 2 years ago, there was rebellions and militia, and then there was Ebola, and now this year there's Corona. So there was really no way to go. So the CEO of the Original Beans was like, well, even though you cannot go, there is this lady from the BBC, and you might actually get her sound recordings to use in your album project. And I was wow, okay. That means that I still want to go, but we can do it whenever, and we can still support these women. So the concept is, I will make an album that comes with a bar of chocolate, and that chocolate helps those female producers as well as plant a tree. So then my question was what's going to be on the album? It will be my third. So I made 2 albums before, and this album then should include my original songs again, but then with what kind of band? So I was like, well, maybe I should have an all-female band as well. So it's going to be women supporting women. And then I started to make a little list of female musicians that I worked with and I liked, and I couldn't stop. So I ended up with a Excel sheet with 100 women, all different instruments, all by now live in different countries, because I might have met them in Boston or New York or in the Netherlands, but they travel. So I in my sheet, it's 40 different countries now. Wow. And then I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. So maybe I should just get going. So for International Women's Day, I sent 100 of them a message saying, hey, can you send me just one note? And I didn't specify if it's high or low or long, short, or just whatever instrument. And 40 of them responded within 2 days, here's one note, a video of me doing one note. Awesome. Singing and playing, and I made a soundscape of that 40 notes. So it was a random composition, and then I knew this is possible. and I can take on such a big project. So then I went with it. So I started my Indiegogo fundraising campaign. So the goal is to hire 100 musicians officially, and then have, it's going to be 9 songs and a couple of soundscapes. So it will be not all random music, but also I wrote songs with lyrics. I already assigned one of my friends she's in Sweden, Linnea Lundgren. Mm-hmm. She's going to make a super choir arrangement of one of my songs. And then there is Inez Velasco. She's from Mexico, but she's currently in New York. And she's going to make an arrangement for a big orchestra. So yeah, it's going to be cool.
It is. It seems to me that the far-reaching impacts, the ripple effect seems to no end, because it's impacting all the people engaged with it. It's impacting all the women in the Congo, that work for this chocolate company. And then, of course, the listener is going to be impacted as well, not only by eating very good chocolate, but by supporting this organization and experiencing the music. And now I listened a little bit earlier. I do follow you, and I have been following you. I think I'm on your mailing list now. And I love your music. You've done quite a few pieces that I listened to. And I was going to tell you, my 14-year-old loves your Is it Firefly?
Yes.
He loves that. He's a real lover.
It's a very kids-proof album. That's the second album. It's totally a cappella, and some songs are quite quirky. Yeah.
Oh, but they're fun. They're fun. And I like that your music, is so experiential. And also, I do want to learn a little bit more about the chocolate. And I know that your husband actually is a well-known chef and works at really one of the most, I think, famous and well-known restaurants in the world. Isn't that right?
Yeah, you used to work there.
I used to work there. Yeah. I worked there from 2015 till 2016. Wow, I'm really getting old.
Yes.
When I came there, it was the number 3 restaurant of the San Pellegrino World's 50 Best Restaurant list, and when I left there, it became number 1. So that's a little shoulder tap for me, working with that.
Well, yes. Aren't you a pastry chef, or am I getting that wrong?
Exactly. I studied pastries, started as a baker, went to hotels, but I really wanted to get into fine dining and restaurants. And within 2.5 years of baking my first cookie, me and 13 other pastry chefs were in the kitchen of 11 Madison Park. So that was quite a journey.
I bet. Well, and I find it so cool that you both are from the area in the Netherlands, right? And that you were both working in New York quite a bit, right, in your careers, because with Vivienne singing and you right at the restaurant.
Exactly. So Vivienne has been in New York or in America from 2012 on, because she studied in Boston. She can explain a little bit about that later. Yeah. And after her studies, she wanted to come for one more year to New York, but because that's the center of jazz, right?
I'm telling you, it is.
It is, and we found out. So she kind of asked me, or told me, I'm going to New York. I don't care what you're going to do. So I was like, well, that's my cue. I need to get myself over there. And so we asked like hundreds of restaurants of where I could work to just get to New York. And luckily 11 Madison Park was one of the few that actually answered.
Well, so they need to be able to arrange the visa and stuff.
Of course.
That's what I was going to say. There's a work visa and all that stuff. Yeah.
It's a lot of paperwork.
It's a lot of paperwork.
I guess normal restaurants have trouble doing that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, first and foremost, and because of the story, I followed her. I was desperately in love. I would cross an ocean for her, and I did.
Yeah, you did.
So, Yeah, I mean, after that year, we just wanted to stay in New York, and we've been staying there ever since. It's a city that doesn't let you go. So,
well, and then you wanted to do your own thing.
Exactly. So, right after that year, I mean, when you reach the level of your craft, it's when you reach the highest level of your craft, it's really where do I go from here?
Yes.
And it's really about finding your personality in your craft and maybe push your craft a little bit further. At a certain point, we were at a party of a friend of ours in Soho, and he kind of said, well, he had a little bit to drink. And he said, well, I want you on my party. I want you to make pastries on my party.
Both of you.
And I want you to sing there. And we're like, oh, that's not what we're doing. I just became, I'm one of the best pastry chefs in the world.
I don't want to make cupcakes, he said. I don't want to make cupcakes.
And she didn't want to sing in a corner.
Yeah, because there there's no kitchen at that venue, so
right.
What are we gonna do? I'm not doing background music. I mean,
exactly.
Just
But being in New York is basically being surrounded by jazz, being surrounded by art, by culture. I was like a sponge of all these Andy Warhol, Jackson Pollock. So I try to incorporate Jackson Pollock or drip painting in combination with the freedom of jazz.
So we told our friend we'll just do our craft at the same time. So while he was making this pastry painting on this table on that rooftop, I made sounds to his movements, and that was so fun that since then we've been doing it for big audiences as well, in museums, in like everywhere, and people would stand around us, watch us, and smell it and see it and hear it, and sounds to movements and colors, different textures. He would use generally like 25 different type of ingredients and textures, so it would not only be chocolate, but it would also be cake and gel and cream and edible flowers. And I would use iPad apps and loops and stations, and sometimes I have a whole band. I orchestrate some basic movements for where I on top of can improvise. And we served our biggest one was in Germany for 1,500 people audience. So that was like, they made a table especially for us, and it was, how big was it?
400 square feet. So it was a world record.
Yeah, 2 arm lengths wide, and then like very long.
Wow.
Yeah, because he should have. The purpose was he should be able to reach 2 arm lengths. So that was he could walk all around the table. Yeah, that was intense.
Well, it seems to me that it would be a spiritual experience, both for you and for the listeners. It's like multi-sensory experience, and for me, that's innately spiritual. So I want to talk a little bit more, if you don't mind, as we get back about your journey, and we'll be back right after these brief messages from our very generous sponsors.
Life is about to get better and easier when you learn to love yourself. Even those difficult aspects of self can be awakened to acceptance and love. Cynthia Alice is offering a life-changing course that is only 4 weeks, but will fundamentally change the way you look at yourself and the world. Self-love really is the answer. Learning to love yourself changes everything. We extended the registration for Learning to Love Yourself by 1 week, so as many people as possible could benefit from this program. The course begins Monday, August 9 at 7 p.m. Head over to www.cynthiaaliceanderson.com to reserve your space today.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partners, Supportek Staffing. Supportek Staffing is an innovative staffing agency built on the principle of caring about employers and employees as they navigate these new workforce and workplace challenges. If you're an employer, they want to be your human resource partner and help with the changes needed during the pandemic. If you're a candidate, They want to become your lifelong career agent to help you grow into your fullest potential. Supportek prioritizes support over volume, integrity over profits, and will treat your business and your career as if it was their own. You can learn more at supportekstaffing.com. That's SUPPORTEK staffing.com. We now return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend CynthiaAliceanderson.
And welcome back. We're so happy to have you today. And our special guests are Vivienne, Aerts, and Ted Steinebach. So welcome to this beautiful interview with two souls I'm just falling in love with the longer I know them. And when there's somebody we meet down south we love, we say, bless their hearts. I love them. So we're so happy to have you on the show and be learning about the great work you're doing, both of you. And, I wanted to kind of take the conversation a little bit deeper because I love all the stuff you're doing with music and chocolate and the experiences with food and, multitudinous crowds, because that says that what you're doing is of value and it says it's impacting people. And just the tremendous support you're receiving financially too, Vivienne, on your project with the chocolate and the trees. I mean, there's just so much good about that. But I know that there must be something behind that. What makes a person like you, who's a performer, a jazz singer, do what you do. And Ted, as much as you want to say as well, in terms of, your spiritual journey, like how did you get to this?
You want to go first?
No, the ladies first.
Well, I've been working with Kenny Werner a lot, but before that, I was in the Netherlands and I studied clinical psychology. I did my bachelor and my master at the same time as my degree at the conservatory for choir conducting. So then in the daytime, I worked as a psychologist, and in the evenings, I had like 5 different type of choirs, like a Dutch choir, a psychiatric patient choir. I had a children's choir and a sea shanty choir. So I was working a lot with groups, and in the daytime, obviously, with people with certain type of problems.
Sure.
Ranging from depression to burnout to anxiety to couples treatment to like
sure.
And
basic life issues. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was performing jazz in clubs in the evenings, so I was like sort of all over the place. But I like working with people, and I think that's really part of me, and that's also how I'm raised. I think my mom is doing all this different type of voluntary work in the community. She works with like elderly people and in the community garden, and she works with she was always the conductor of the children's choir in the church, which I was the piano player of when I was very young. I became the pianist of the church, and I've been just always doing a lot of things with community and with helping out. And my mom, they always told me just to be nice. And I think that goes a long way, because imagine like everybody in the world will be nice. That's a great start.
It is a great start.
I also want to do that with my art, and working with Kenny Werner, where his whole institute by now, that is based on his book that he wrote 20 years ago, which is called Effortless Mastery, is how to let the music play itself. Instead of having your mind get into the way, he's teaching in this book and in his method, how to let go of this anxiety, of this desire to sound good, of this stuff that gets into the way. There's all varieties of stuff that could get into the way, and it's human. I mean, we all have our things and our stuff we're working on. But
of course.
When I met him, I was like, well, my psychology background, my therapist background, and music just they collided. I was like, wow, this is perfect. So I just started hanging with him at Berkeley, and then I started working for him, and it's been over 7 years now, I think. And we're creating this institute where we providing a solution for people that are hurt in some way.
Yeah.
And Kenny is doing a lot of experimental music, because you just create a sound and whatever comes out, that's the sound. So in a way, that's free jazz. That's improvisation in itself. And then if you add some knowledge of how, I should be able to sing high or fast or certain type of chorus, I need to train my ears in a way. So you add on technique to that freedom that you just developed. That's where you find this light, I think. And then with the chocolate and the jazz combination, the shows that we've been doing, obviously Teddy was exposed to all this stuff a lot, creating in the moment, don't fear, just jump, go. And don't worry if it's it could be an ugly painting of like splashes of chocolate, because chocolate doesn't necessarily look nice if you throw it. Chocolate, if you throw
to just
chocolate,
try that. I'd like to try throwing some.
Yeah, you should do it.
Everybody should.
That's what I was thinking.
Just take some spoons and just warm them, temper the chocolate a little bit and then throw it. It could be, it for sure will be delicious, but it doesn't necessarily look good. So that's a technique. That's a skill you have to add on, and then trust that it will happen. Which is, you should talk about that. I think it's a trust.
It's a trust. I mean, when we start this show, she usually starts with a sound or two, and I'm standing right in front of an empty canvas, and for me to do something with that and not think about, how should I throw my first throw? There's nothing as scary as a blank canvas. That's what a lot of painters will tell you. I've learned from Kenny Werner that you should let go of any ego, and however the chocolate falls, that's how it falls.
Yes.
So what I usually do is just close my eyes, breathe, and let her sound flow through me.
Yes.
And I really respond emotionally to it. And the art of what I think is the art of our shows is that I can make her sound physical. I can actually throw her sound. And whatever the chocolate falls or how it falls, that's what my body told me to do when I listened to that music.
Yes.
So it's really out of my head. It's not an ego thing. It's not it's not, look at how cool we are or whatever, or how delicious this chocolate is. It is, by the way. But it's but it's really letting go.
And then I respond to his movement. So it's sort of a communicative. So we both watch each other, and then it makes sense.
Yeah. And when the painting and when the sound is done, we know when it's done. It just feels done.
Yes.
And everybody gets a spoon and gets to eat it. And we don't care if they destroy the painting or not. It's out there.
And they are actually part of the artwork.
Right.
I like to think of that way. We had, I mean, before Corona, but we had people even licking the table. Yeah, like they could, because they've been watching and smelling it, and they've been part of that show, just watching. And then they finally get the spoon, and they're like, "What's this? And what's this? But gel and cake and cream and."
It's very basic emotions.
Into it.
That's what I was going to say. Yes. Well, there's so many, spiritual things that you said there, and I want to just lift them up for our listeners if this kind of thing might be new. They probably heard it too, but I have like a keen ear for trust, for release, for non-attachment. And, all those things were really present, in what you said. And so what I love about, the way you're describing the experiences you create together is that it is kind of very like the base of being human, like it smells, it's taste, but there's also a real high aspect as well. And so it feels to me like both a very human and spiritual experience. And I think that's what we're all trying to figure out how to do, is how do we be spiritual in this human existence we call life. And of course, certain situations make it harder than others. But when we can have these times of connection, of, feeling connected to what you're doing and then experiencing it, chances are when another moment comes, we're going to be like a little bit closer, to being able to find that connection right where we are, because they see you embodying it. They see the freedom, the trust, the connection. And that's what we all want. I don't care who you are or how old you are or what your life experience has been or what country you may find yourself in at the moment. You are a soul and you want deeply, deeply to be connected, to be loved, to be okay, to feel okay, but to feel connected and loved. And I think your experiences really give people a chance at that. I'm not surprised that someone would lick the table, or I think it would almost seem like the only right thing to do to fully take in the experience.
Right.
Yes, it's just that's just
it's
beautiful.
It's so true, because we can live in the future or in the past, but it doesn't get us anywhere, but we have to develop the sense of the now.
Yes.
Like Kenny is describing it as the space.
The space, yes.
So that's the only way you can do that show. Just be there in that moment, and create from that and trust that it will happen. And that's, I think, the magic of, that's why we like doing this.
Yes,
yeah, it's a very non-judgmental space, and that's very peaceful in a way, very deeply down peaceful. And I think that when you don't judge the moment, or don't judge whoever you are or whatever comes out of you, you get more you get more in tune with yourself. And I think that's really can be very radiant. So that's probably what you're describing, right? That people draw inspiration from that, because I think we're doing that.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, there's nothing more attractive than somebody who's dialed in, because it's how we're all meant to be. And so I think anytime we see that, we go, oh, and so, psychologically, of course, it's positive shadow. We see someone embodying something that we want, and we go, I want some of that. And we think we want them, but what we really want is the experience. And yes, I think it's what we all want and crave. And, Kenny Werner's, I talked about it a lot when he was on the show, but I just felt I should mention, his impact on my life has just been tremendous. And I worked with groups of ministers. I didn't tell him this, but I worked with groups of ministers. We were all, when we were in school together many years ago, and the book was just coming out. And a couple of my friends, were jazz musicians, and they were really, working with it. One was a B3 player, and the other one was a piano player who was conservatory trained, but working more in jazz. And we started meditating together every day. We meditated like for a year. We did all 4 meditations every day for a year. And then I started using it with ministers, and I did it with people in my class, because ministers are famous for like not singing in front of their congregations. And I was like, you guys are going to look awkward up there if you don't know what you're doing. And, I come from a musical background, and everybody in my family is a musician, and I have a music degree and all that. So anyway, long story short, music has always been real important for me in worship, in whatever way I find myself, whatever, religious experience I find myself, music is a really important part of it. So anyway, I use Kenny's meditations, and what we would do after we would like do the first one, and then we would just go into the sound experiment where I would just have all of the ministers. I said, as you feel guided, just sing a note. And we did exactly that, Vivienne. I'd never heard another person talk about it. And all the ministers would just sing a note. And what started happening over time is it began to organize into chords into melody. Yeah. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch and observe. And I was just visiting a friend's church a few weeks ago that I mentored. And when I got there, she was up singing with the band. And I was like, I am so proud, because she was not a singer. She had not been comfortable really in her body or in her, in her singing voice. And then she took a little part of a solo on one of the songs. And so like for me, everything is about like soul growth and development. And that material has provided so much help for me. Yeah. In my life. And it's really helped me, support others with just that, trusting all that is in that moment. And there's nothing like that feeling. I think I reach it the best, in my speaking. And, I think I reach it the best, in my speaking. And the other places I really have to work at it, but there it happens, and it happens naturally, and I'm at ease. But the material continues to inform me, because now, I have a piano here at the house, and my son's a musician and everything too. So we're gonna do a thing tonight. We were just talking about it this morning on the way to school. We're gonna do some playing together tonight. And he loves jazz, and he's a violinist, and he's learning to, kind of find his way through a song, even though he's really classically trained. So we continue to practice this. So this is just like our life here at my house, and so when we cook, it's the same thing. Like I was like, I don't want anything on. I just want to be in this moment. And I don't want the TV going. I want to give myself to the way I'm chopping this up, the way I'm experiencing, like washing the fish, or like whatever, that every single moment can be this type of moment you're describing. But in today's world, where we've got like a million things vying for our attention, it takes a lot of
focus,
yes.
Discipline,
correct,
and practicing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
It does take some, yeah.
There's a guy.
Practicing is not a bad word.
We forget that we can practice this, and it doesn't take that long. You can just have like 3 breaths.
Yes.
And do that a couple of times a day. Mm-hmm. And that will trickle through in everything you do. But we see it as another thing on our list to do, and then we never do it. So it's sort of our mind tricks us into, still going for that loophole.
Well, and everybody, I mean, the number one thing, I work with people, the number one thing is, am I good enough? Am I going to be liked? And when we can just drop that, there's so much freedom. I mean, you'll find yourself laughing for no reason. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to be when we can, yes, be in that place. Well, I know I really want to thank you for being here, and I don't want to end quite yet, but I want to make sure for our listeners, we know too how to contact you. Now, in our show notes, Dave always makes sure, we have links and all that. So I know you'll get them all that, but anything else you want to say about, like, I started thinking, are you going to be in the U.S. anytime soon, or do you know that yet? Is it too early to know?
Well, we're waiting for a European travel ban. So once they lift it, we'll be back. So fingers crossed for probably August, I think. By then, they'll change the policy.
Yes, I hope so. Well, I'm going to follow you. I don't expect you to, like text me as your homie saying, hey, I'm going to be in New York. But I want to know, because there's a spiritual community I work with a lot there. And, I work with them on a fairly regular basis. And we were just, I was just there recently, and we were saying, okay, next time, maybe in the fall or whatever, it'd be nice to be in person. So anyway, it would be so cool if I could.
For sure, in the fall.
I'll take
we'll
you to
be back. We'll be back.
or you can make, beautiful food for me. I wouldn't mind at all.
Deal.
Put Teddy to work.
Although, Teddy, I have to admit, I'm very hard to cook for, because I am gluten-free.
Oh, don't worry.
Not a problem. Happy to cater you.
Yeah.
Well,
actually,
okay.
It's more fun. I'm having more fun when I can get your night better than the rest of the company.
Well,
So,
yes. And you know what? In great restaurants, I've noticed this. I can't remember the restaurant in New York one time. And I said to the server, I said, I know because of the level of this establishment that gluten-free is not a problem. I said, but I'm one of those people that has to be. I don't say I'm gluten-free. And then if cake looks good, I eat some for dessert. Like I really, can't do it. And what would you recommend? And she goes, wait 1 minute. And the chef comes out and goes, what can I make you? And it made my whole day because it was just that.
Yes.
It was like, I am going to make sure you enjoy every bite you eat. I felt like, I felt like a movie star.
Nice.
And there was so much care and so much love in that food. And that's what you just said. So yes.
Right.
You know how it is for gluten-free people. It's hard to
It is,
sometimes, which is one of the reasons I think I cook a lot. It's like, it's just easier. And most of the time it's better than what I can buy when I go out.
For sure.
But anyway, so tell us a little bit about, just again, where we can go to find out more information. Cause I know some of our listeners are really going to want to support you financially, because they love to support good people doing good things. So tell us a little bit about it. One more time.
So yeah, all the information should be on my website. So it'd be viviennearts.com. I'm sure that will be in the description. And the record will be out and available, but it's already, you can pre-order it. So, but you can also opt in a higher tier. So you can, for example, get yourself a chocolate workshop with Teddy and then support the album project that way. Or you can buy a whole first. So if you buy 100 albums or chocolate bars, and it will be 100 trees. Everything will be on that website.
Great. Well, and I also saw on the site, there's a lot of different levels of giving. So even if you can't give a lot,
right,
you can still know you're making an impact. And I don't know of another project that is that clear in its goodness for the world. I mean, on absolutely every level, the chocolate, the women.
I mean, you can do whatever, just one CD and one bar of chocolate will then plant one tree. It's just like 20 euros. So that's like $22 or so.
Yes. Well, thank you both for being with us, and I hope you'll join us again. And we again are just happy to make your acquaintance and happy to support the great work you're both doing. And we know you're making a difference. You did to us today, and we see you being a light in the world, and we want to uplift and support the great work you're doing. So for all of our listeners, blessings on the journey, dear friend. As always, we are so grateful for the time you spend with us. And again, as you go and donate, it supports us being able to stay on the air. We really are on the air as a service and as a ministry to those who listen and find themselves inspired by our work. So thank you, friends, and we'll see you next week.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by Supportek Staffing. This channel is also made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2021 Cynthiaaliceanderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.